Welcome, 239 Uncensored, everything Southwest Florida and beyond. And we have a very, very interesting podcast with the lovely Shannon Livingston. And Shannon's going to bring a good section to this, I guess. Is that how we'd say it? A good piece from maybe like the civilian side.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
a mother side. And a mother side. No, you got a lot of information.
I have a lot of questions.
Yeah. What we're going to talk about today is, as we all know, in Oxford High School in Michigan, there was a terrible school shooting where 4 children died and 7 other people injured, including a teacher. And we're going to talk about it. Are our kids safe in schools today? Because I think there was some things that fell down, and we'll talk about this. I mean, I think this is a great topic for
the podcast. And, 239 Uncensored, we do 239 and beyond. But I do have a personal connection to this case, as do other people in the area. And I think that we are an example in the 239 and in Florida with our recent legislation, but particularly in Collier County, we are an example of what should be done. And unfortunately, what did not happen in this situation.
Yeah. And basically, we know from what we know, this young kid, 15-year-old, his name is Ethan Crumbly, right? I don't really even care to say his name.
But he is a child and he is mentally disturbed.
And we'll talk about that. The kid's got problems and he was screaming for help. And we'll talk a little bit about that as well. So he goes into the school after many warnings, and we'll get into those as well. He goes into the school. He basically screams, "I need help." He let people know that. Administrators know, parents knew. He goes in, he gets sent back to class. He goes to the restroom with his backpack, comes out with a firearm, and commences to shooting other students.
Yes.
It's just a horrible, horrible situation. How does it get to that point? I mean, as a parent, when you sent your son to school and I sent my 2 daughters to school, knowing kind of how this transpired, how does that make you feel?
Well, it's horrifying to even hear that your kid is doing a shooter, a live shooter drill at school. We did tornado drills.
Yeah.
And, we would get under our desk or in the hall and put our hands over our head like that was going to help. But that's the most that we did. We did fire drills and tornado drills. So the fact that we're even putting this into kids' heads, that this is a possibility for them and that they have to live with this now, it is very foreign to me and very disappointing and scary. So, I only got the drill side of this. Nothing had ever happened to my son, but I did see it change. He graduated in 2013. And so certainly Columbine had happened and some, other mass shootings. And you just don't ever think it's going to happen to you or anybody that you know. And then this happened. And I did know this, a girl that I know, I'm friends of the family, was a senior at that school. And so to see it all unfold on a personal level, and as a mother, as you said, to really ask questions about what happened, how was this kid let down? First of all, I know that he did something heinous and awful, and that's terrible. I'm not trying to dismiss that or minimize that. But he did need help and he didn't get it. And he was let down by, I believe, the administration and his parents and anyone else that came his way. He had very intrusive thoughts and apparently very obsessive thoughts, and that was not taken seriously. Instead, the parents encouraged him to have a handgun, which he did not need, was not, properly trained to use. And in this part of the state or part of the country, they hunt. So, my friend that attends that school, she has been deer hunting with her father. So has her younger brother. They have been taught to be around guns responsibly. Neither one of them has the handgun. So there's an issue there for me as a responsible gun owner of why did the kid even have the handgun in the first place? So the parents obviously were not responsible.
Yeah.
And to begin with.
Yeah, no, that's just the tip of the iceberg, right?
Yeah.
But just to come with it, I believe they bought the gun about 3 or 4 days prior, and they bought it as a gift to him, as an early Christmas gift. And basically,
and this was after, like you said, the school had already contacted them.
yeah, there was signs and warning.
And talked about these behavioral issues. And so it wasn't like, oh, well, we just didn't know, we didn't, see anything. They were told, they were flat out told that he was having these problems.
Yeah. A concerning thing too is that morning before the shooting, a teacher walked up and saw that he was, doodling, drawing, and things like that. And he basically said, the thoughts won't stop. Help me.
Oh,
help me.
Isn't that sickening
to
hear about now?
Yeah, this kid's drawing these things, and they basically intervened briefly because they took him down to the office. They talked to him administratively. And at that point, there was a decision to let him go back to class. His parents wouldn't take him home.
Right.
And I just got to tell you a little bit. I've got quite a bit of experience in law enforcement, 31 years. A majority of my time was spent working in the schools. I'd say probably half of my career. I was the deputy at Naples High School. I also came back as a commander and a captain of the whole division. So I've got a chance to see a lot of these things. And as you mentioned, 2001 Columbine, that incident happened. So it kind of changed the way we did things in policing.
But not enough. And not very, not right off the bat. We had discussed.
It took a while for those
did take
changes.
A while. And so at that time, they secured the perimeter. You were telling me that used to be the approach to these mass shootings in schools.
Yeah. So what they would do initially was, back when we had a thought process in law enforcement, like, hey, there's a shooter in the school, they would secure the perimeter, making sure these people didn't come out and shoot up other people. Meanwhile, while they were securing the perimeter, the shooters were on a body count mission. They were killing people within the school.
Right. Because they're not negotiating for something else like a typical hostage situation.
Right.
They're in there to do damage.
Right. They go in there with the intention. And of course, Klebold and Harris, when they did Columbine, they had a little plan that didn't quite go as well as they wanted. They brought propane tanks in, and they thought the propane tanks were going to drop the ceiling and the main beams in the cafeteria, and the cafeteria was going to collapse. And as the students were going to come out of the school, they were going to gun them down there. When those propane tanks did not detonate, they went ahead into the school and started shooting. The first 3 or 4 teachers that saw them thought they were just doing it was like a play or some sort of acting class that was going on at the school, because their mind did not really equate it to actual guns and violence and things like that. So basically, in Columbine, what they did was they locked down. Now we have a response, and I will tell you that Lee County Sheriff's Office, Collier County Sheriff's Office, we have a response that the SRO or the first deputy in the proximity immediately goes to the shooter. They try to identify where the shooter is and immediately go to the shooter. So basically that SRO or that school resource officer, we call them youth relations deputy in Collier County, their mission, number one priority, is to stop the threat.
Which would probably mean sacrificing themselves.
In some cases, yeah, absolutely.
You're walking towards somebody that is firing and try to distract them long enough to let other people get by. And you had said something interesting too about Florida being different, because they did pass legislation requiring a student resource officer in every school.
Yeah, Parkland killings on February 14th, 2018, Major Stoneman and Douglas at the high school, they had 14 kids get killed. There are actually 17 students and then a few teachers as well. But 17 people got killed in that incident. And they went back and looked at the video, and the shooter had ample time to continue while the SRO was outside waiting. And there's, lawsuits and claims right now. But while he was outside waiting, listening to the gunfire, and he failed to go in and failed to act. And, that's just a major thing. Like you said, there's a good possibility that SRO or school resource officer is going to probably take gunfire and possibly not survive. But even we discussed that when we train those SROs, we mentally do our best to prepare them to say, listen, this is what your mission is. you've got to go in there and you've got to stop the threat.
But so how do you staff enough of those officers? We already have issues with law enforcement. It's a high burnout rate and all of that. So having enough officers, now we have legislation requiring that we have all of these officers in schools. How do you recruit for that? How do you train for that? Are you taking people out of retirement, taking people off of street patrol? How does that work?
Yeah, all the above, right? So a lot of times people want to come down to Florida. They might not want to work that late night patrol shift.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're trying to do is, and when I was there, we take people that were coming from other parts of the country and say, hey, I used to be an SRO back
Mm-hmm.
north, or I did it once before. I'd love to join the agency. I don't really want to be in a patrol car necessarily. Not that they're not good officers, but the shift might not work for them.
It's a grind.
Yeah, so we're bringing those folks in, and also within the agency, we if you spend enough time in patrol, there's a certain period where you're 5 or 6 years, you're like, I'd like to switch over and be an SRO, because it's a desirable spot, knowing though that you could be the person.
Right,
So
yeah.
we definitely have mentally prepared our SROs over the years, our YRDs, to be able to do this type of thing. We do a training every year. I was involved in that. I also do school resource officer training for the Office of the Attorney General for the state of Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And my very first thing that I tell those folks that are going to be working in the schools is we tell them, say, listen, this is what you've got to mentally prepare for. If there's gunfire and you've got any questions of whether or not you're going to be able to do it, this job probably is not going to be for you. So we tell them, hey, this is what could happen.
Yeah, because I always think of that as being a cushy, not a lot of responsibility job. And that's true day to day until all of a sudden you have a situation and you are running toward gunfire or whatever is, demanded of you.
Yeah.
Hopefully you're running towards doing your job.
Yeah, it was looked at as kind of like officer friendly, right? Because I think when it first started, before Columbine, we know there were some mass school shootings, but not to the level where they are now.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of sad, really. This one hit the news with 4 students killed, but if there's 2 or 3 students killed or a teacher killed, a lot of times it doesn't even reach the news.
Oh my gosh.
It's just terrible to think that we've come to that point in the country today.
Well, I graduated in 1991.
Really?
Quite a few years ago, and we had an officer, but he was there for like us skipping school. I mean, that we didn't even think that he was there to protect us or mitigate some type of a crisis situation or certainly a live gunfire or anything like that. I mean, we just really didn't think that way.
Right. It wasn't that officer wasn't there for that. I started in 1993 at Naples High School, and I was there till 97.
Mm-hmm.
So I was their deputy. I worked a little bit in Immokalee, worked a little bit at Everglades City.
What was the mindset in 93 when you went in?
Well,
was it the same now, or was it like I'm saying that what I thought it was, like skipping school?
Yeah, as we learn as an SRO, a lot of it we actually were teaching in the classrooms back then. We were doing, maybe 25% was teaching.
What the heck were you teaching?
Yeah, I go into law studies and teach kids about the negatives that could happen when you get stopped by the police, and
mm-hmm.
Make sure you put your hands on the wheel. Don't be jumping up and down, getting all silly. But no, we teach them. We teach them, those type of things. And then also we taught them gun safety. I used to go in the classroom and teach gun safety, things like that.
Really?
I
can't imagine that in most states.
I was a DARE instructor, which I enjoyed that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really did a lot of those classes, but probably half my time was actually in the classroom and fostering a relationship with kids. Wasn't so much security. Now the roles have kind of changed where you're there on campus, and a lot of these SROs are to secure the campus
mm-hmm.
from threats that come. And a lot of times people don't understand there's a lot of threats that come. You might have a father that's mad at the school that could be coming on. You might have a school teacher that's there that a husband has made threats that they're going to come on campus.
Right.
You have students on campus that are a threat, and that can be a problem. But I will tell you, we did get guns. When I was in the high school, we had kids that brought weapons to school. We did find a gun at school when I worked at Naples High. The one thing I will tell you, and the folks that live in Lee and Collier County in the 239 and somewhat beyond in the state of Florida, we have some laws that have really, really helped, I believe. But I know our school superintendent, Kamala Patton, and I know Sheriff Rambosk and all the leadership at the Collier County Sheriff's Office, and I know Sheriff Marcino operates the same way. If we have a potential threat, and the school board meeting at Oxford, Michigan, they just had a meeting the other night, any type of threats will be taken seriously. A little bit too late, right?
Oh my gosh.
You know, if there's any type of threat, any inkling, doesn't matter if it's 10 o'clock at night, 12 o'clock at night, 1 in the morning, everything, full attention, everything comes to a standstill. And we expend all resources necessary and exhaust that threat to all potential. So, for instance, if a kid says, I heard on the bus that a kid's going to bring a gun to school the next day, we will actually, if we aren't able to identify that student, we will actually ride the bus with the kids to school for their safety. We'll have several deputies there on campus. We'll actually, if we are able to determine a kid's or student's name or a parent, whoever the threat may be, we'll go right to them and we'll track down where they live. Do they have weapons? Such this case, the very first thing they probably should have done is brought that kid and separated him from any other student in the school, went to his house, talked to his parents, find out, does he have access to any weapons?
Right. But what are the parents' rights? Because it struck me reading about these parents that they're kind of anti-establishment. And that is part of the problem here is I think they neglected to really look at the seriousness of what was going on with their child because they were just so caught up in being anti-establishment. So if these parents are not going to invite an officer into their home when they knock on the door, what are those parents' rights and what can the officer do to make sure that they are, searching the premises for guns or really handling that situation?
Yeah, it's a good point. So cooperating parents is always the best. But we've ran into this exact situation where parents are like, hey, don't talk to my kid. Right. Call the attorney. Don't come to my house. You're not going in. Well, guess what we do? The kid's not allowed to come back to school. The kid needs to go through several layers of reassurance, counseling, signed off before that kid can go back to school. So never would we have a situation where if we had a threat that the parent would come in, I like to think we would never have that, right? Maybe I'd never say never, but where a kid is going to be a potential threat and the parents come in and say, no, send him back to class and the school wants him out of school. In that case, we would just say, no, the kid has to clear some hurdles before he can get back to school.
Now, does the kid have to go through all of that if the parents are cooperative as well?
Well, if the parents are cooperative, what we would do, and this exact scenario has happened several times when I was in administrative capacity overseeing the schools in security. We've had kids and parents that cooperate, right? We go to the house, we locate the weapon, or we don't locate the weapon. We have a game plan for that kid prior to them coming to school. It's probably not going to be in the next week. It's probably not going to be in the next 2 weeks. It might not even be the next 3 weeks. Okay. That kid is not going to be able to come to school immediately because of that threat until we feel that we have exhausted all means and we feel that that kid has been kind of given the green light by professionals to come back to school. Then we'll do it. In this case, they sent the kid back to class and they told his parents that he needed to get counseling within 48 hours. Well, a lot can happen in 48 hours, as we know.
Yeah. Well, and, you said that they had this school board meeting where they changed policy. And part of that, it wasn't just in response to the incident, to the shootings. They then had a threat after that as well, that somebody had, threatened to, I didn't even read the details of what it was. I just saw the posting of, somebody saying that they were going to do something else in the school. So they had to call off school. And I was surprised even that they had in-person classes. I don't know that I would want to send my child back or that I would want to go back to a building so quickly after seeing all of that.
Yeah. Again, I never like to play armchair quarterback or Monday morning armchair quarterback.
And we don't know all the details.
And I don't know all the details, but what I have been given to me, it's kind of scary. So they had drawings, they had information the previous 2 weeks up till the day this kid was involved. And they kind of brought this kid to the office and kind of talked to the parents. Parents weren't cooperative, and there was really no teeth to anything.
Well, and you had kids talking about this being a threat. That was a rumor. And the school told them, stop talking about it. We don't want to be hysterical here, and let's not gossip. So everyone was aware that this was a problem, and it was not taken seriously.
Yeah. And I think the parents in this one, and to go back to your point on the school board, they did meet because they had other situations. Mm-hmm. They've changed some rules. They're no longer allowed to have backpacks on campus. So they're looking at ways to have clear backpacks. Even in some of our schools in Collier County, we went away from lockers, we went away from backpacks, things like that. Kids are actually carrying their books. Those little things do help, but it's almost impossible to keep a weapon off campus. Our best information for our law enforcement is intelligence, information that kids, like you said, kids have been talking about this. You've been able to identify a kid that's going to be very dangerous to your school. We need to make sure we keep him sidelined.
Right.
It's just the way it is.
Get him some help. Isolate him and get him some help, because otherwise he just turns into an adult that is going to do it in a Walmart.
Yeah.
You're right. These kids are not getting any better. So do you think that a 15-year-old should have access to a handgun just as shooting?
I think that when you say access,
like in his room on his nightstand, in this situation.
No, I would say because when I grew up, I'm from Maine, right? Mm-hmm. But he's from Michigan, right? We had a basically it was a showcase for rifles, and we had our handguns underneath. Mm-hmm. My dad really never locked it up. Okay. But a kid that shows some sort of problem, number one, why his parents thought this was a good idea to get this kid a gun, it's beyond me, right? Mm-hmm. But somebody who's showing some tendencies, I would clear the whole house from guns. You know what I'm saying? There's kids that you take them from early on, you take them out hunting, turkey hunting, deer hunting, whatever. Those kids, hopefully, I'm not saying it's 100%, but hopefully they have respect for the weapon and the firearm, and they've been taught up through those ages. I don't think them having access or being able to access something, because really reality is it's a key somewhere and you put it somewhere you think it's hidden. Well, your kid's probably going to find it. But if you, like you said, if it's on the nightstand and little Ethan's going to go take this gun to school the next day, put it in his backpack. Right. I mean, he
put it on social
media. Crazy.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
He took a picture of it and put it on social media.
Yeah. This is school safety 101 though, when you get a tip. I mean, even when I was in high school myself, right? We knew that the principal knew, or the dean of students knew there was going to be a fight at a particular location after school. You'd go out there, and guess who was there? Your school administration was there to make sure it didn't happen. I mean, that's 101. You've got to intervene. And if you don't intervene, obviously the results are like this. And like I said, in Collier County schools, Dr. Patton worked so close with Chief Weschler, Naples PD, Kevin Rambosk at the sheriff's office. And I know Carmine Marcino, Sheriff Marcino, does the exact same thing. They do not tolerate any of these types of things, because you just never know. You never know.
So what do you think about the proposal of teachers having guns and actually rewarding teachers that have guns?
Here's my thought on that. I've been in law enforcement, like I said, for roughly 31 years, just retired. The key is training. The number one key is training. I'm not against teachers having guns, because I will tell you, there's teachers that have probably more gun experience than I did, even as a police officer. Some of them, they might go to the range a lot. Mm-hmm. The key is having the training to be able to carry that firearm. And the other problem I have is just when you introduce a gun into a school, it's just another threat that if it gets in the wrong hands, it could be a problem. But really, it's the training. If you have somebody who's trained, because everybody thinks, it's kind of funny, you're a police officer, like these guys are like the best shooters in the world. Well, trust me, they're not the best shooters.
Because they're not shooting.
Yeah, even police officers, right? We're only as good as what we train. We go out to the range, we train, we shoot. I'm decent because I enjoy it, but I'm not like the best. There's civilians that are much better shooters than I am.
But how do you determine, as law enforcement, you have a threat, a teacher maybe takes down that threat, or they're just in another part of the building, you encounter somebody with a gun. How do you know that they are a teacher
It's tough.
and not the threat?
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. You know, there's a lot of things out there that supposedly could prevent a accidental shooting that way. Like, put your ball cap on. You might have an orange cap. Well, you're scrambling. You know, how you gonna?
If I'm grabbing my gun, I'm not looking for my hat.
Who's Johnny gonna? Because we've talked about that. Are they gonna? Maybe they put their vest on, you know, and then go after the guy. It usually doesn't happen that way. It's not a perfect scenario.
So, that would be my thing more so than what's the judgment or the training of the teachers, because those things can be, looked at. It's in the moment if they do have to pull a gun.
Yeah.
What stops them from them becoming the target? And I would be afraid as a teacher to get involved. And then, I guess you drop your gun when police come in, but I don't know.
Sometimes it's too quick, right?
Yeah.
And the thing is, well, the police will know the teacher. No, that's not true.
Right.
Because I can tell you that we used to bring our officers in that worked patrol. They had been on campus, maybe drove around campus, but they didn't know where the cafeteria was versus the gym. So we forced our patrol deputies to come in and get the layout of the school, because look at Barron Collier, look at Naples High School, look at Gulf Coast. Those schools are huge. Mm-hmm. If you don't know where the gym is versus the cafeteria, and there's a school shooting, and all we know is there's shooters in the cafeteria, and then the way we lock doors on our campuses, we've done a very good job at that, of just securing the doors. Well, if I'm responding as a deputy and everything's locked and the shooter's inside,
right?
What do we do? But to answer your question, it's a really good one, because the only person who's probably going to know the teacher, and if you've got 100 teachers, they might not, is going to be the SRO, but they could already be in battle,
right?
So those are really good questions. Good things.
Well, and then what happens with these false reports? Just like in Oxford, then you have kids that think, oh, well, I'll call something in or whatever. So what happens to those kids? What's the punishment for calling in a fake bomb threat or, creating a situation like that?
Usually what happens, and it does happen quite frequently, that if there's a situation with a bomb threat, usually a couple copycat bomb threats come in, or like you said, in this case, another threat of a school shooting. Mm-hmm. Usually those get investigated and the consequences are pretty stiff. So it usually stops from going too far in most cases. So in other words, the other kids see that, hey, I better not do that, because this is, going to be real problemsome. If, the consequences are going to be pretty bad if I do it, I get caught. Is that what you're kind of wondering?
So also, if you're a kid going to one of these schools and you see these signs like these kids did with Ethan in Oxford, it's almost like you have to tell the kids, not just tell somebody, tell two people. Because if you tell one person, that may not be enough. You better really do your follow-up. I mean, that is really pathetic that you have to put that into the kids' hands. But I think that we are at that place of tell a teacher and your parent, tell the officer and a teacher, tell at least 2 or 3 people, and make sure that they're talking to each other, because the way that it falls apart is just inexcusable. I don't know how else to approach that. I mean, do you think we should be telling kids to tell 2 people now?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great thing, because you're exactly right. When you tell somebody and they fail to act on it, that kid is like, well, what I told them, it doesn't matter, right? So some of the kids will tell you, well, I want to tell you, but I don't want anybody to know it came from me. Right. Well, that's a relationship you build. When I was in the schools, I thought I had a pretty good relationship with the kids. Kids would tell me everything. They'd be like, hey, Dep, you better watch out. There's going to be a fight down the end here after lunch. Yeah, little snitches come up. But that's how I had a good relationship with the kids. I mean, all the kids knew when I was at the school that if you did something wrong, you're going to get jammed up for it. You might even go to jail for it, right? But they all knew that if I would treat people fairly. Right. So you were there kids would come up. Them. Yeah, I was there to protect them. Even if
you were there to protect them from each other.
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah. But no, and just a building relationship. But to answer your question is, tell people. The best thing you can do, and we've averted so many situations by intelligence information. Basically what the students are telling us and what teachers hear And I believe in this case, from what I understand, the teachers have brought forth to the administration several times this kid, Ethan, was involved in a lot of this stuff.
Right.
And
And so
it's
if you're
concerning.
a teacher and you've taken this to your boss and nothing happens, I think we're going to see a lot
It's
of
a shame.
lawsuits.
It's a shame.
Not just Jeffrey Feiger going after the 100
Yeah,
million. I think
yeah.
we're going to see a lot of different
Yeah.
people suing anyone they can.
And people say, what about those big numbers? Well, it gets your attention, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You
it
see
does.
$100 million, you're like, okay. And then to think of a school administration not acting and not jumping on it. From my understanding, again, I'm reading, right? I'm reading the information out there. They felt that they would handle it through school administration side versus law enforcement, because in most schools you have a school resource officer, sometimes two. They felt that they were handling it on the school discipline side and not getting law enforcement involved. That is a huge no-no.
Do you think that, this is a more affluent suburb? So do we see that more in schools where they're like, oh, I want to protect our reputation? Stuff like that doesn't happen in this neighborhood, so we're just going to handle that internally.
Yeah, no, it does happen. And I will tell you that we've really overcome a lot in the last 15 to 20 years in Collier County public schools because of our administration. They've been ingrained to say, listen, see something, say something, right? Yeah. I need to let the deputy know. And to be quite honest with you, it doesn't make your school look bad because you had an incident in your school. What makes your school look bad is what happened here.
Right.
You have an incident and you fail to mention it. And we've had sexual batteries in school. We've had fights. We've had narcotic trafficking. We've had all kinds of things. The school administration needs to let law enforcement know, because by hiding it and pushing it under is not doing the right thing for your school.
Right. Well, and we saw after 9/11, the whole see something, say something. That is how law enforcement deals with most issues, whether it's drug trafficking in neighborhoods or terrorist threats or whatever. So, if I'm a parent and I hear my kid talking with his friends about the kid that's a little off and I have concerns, do I call the principal? Do I call police? Who do I call?
That's a great question. I would do the twofold test. Okay. Twofold
tell
test.
Two people.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
So tell two people. And I think it's a great idea. You tell the school administration, but definitely make sure law enforcement knows about it as well.
Yeah. Because
what you don't want is it to be up to the administration and then in a vacuum, and they don't want a report written or be on the news.
Right.
But to me, I think a principal that brings it to the attention of law enforcement is a hero. And if it makes the news, it's a little black eye on your school, but ultimately you did the right thing. You did something that probably saved people's lives. In this case, in Oxford, they send the kid back to class because his parents said, no, we don't want him to go home. How can you do that?
Right. Those parents should have never have had that much control, especially knowing that they were terrible parents.
Yeah.
This is a kid that is not doing well in life. And so we're going to let these parents continue to run the show. Yeah. Makes no sense.
And I think a teacher overlooked the text, right? It was a pretty graphic text. And I think the mother wrote back, or a teacher, I believe, oversaw writing, and then the mother texted the kid later in the day and said, LOL, I'm not mad at you. You got to do it and not get caught.
Yeah, you have to learn how to not get caught.
Yeah.
He was looking for ammunition.
Yeah,
he was searching for ammunition, and the teacher
online,
was,
right?
Was concerned. And this isn't just, some people may say, well, yeah, I buy ammunition. What's the big deal? He's in class, he's in school, and he's not focusing on
15 years old.
Yeah, he's not focusing on what he's supposed to be focusing on. He's super focused on ammunition. So that is a big red flag in and of itself.
Yeah. Well, just think about, you got Madison Baldwin, Tate Meyer, Hannah St. Juliana, Justin Schilling, and the 7 other injured. How would you like to be the feeling that those parents have, knowing that we could have prevented this at some point, some step along the way?
Well, and all of these things can be prevented, whether it is a school shooting or, these Walmart shootings or whatever. And it really does come down to see something, say something. And I hate that as a libertarian and a rebel. I hate the thought of people being snitches, and involved in other people's lives. But there's a difference between, telling everybody somebody's business and really being concerned about the safety of people around you and being responsible for that and taking it to the right people to deal with it.
Yeah. And the reality is, very few of these incidents go without somebody mentioning it prior,
Right.
whether it be the
right.
suspect. I mean, there are some of these that probably there's not a whole lot you could do. I could see some guy living in a house and a hermit go and shoot up the place, never told anybody, but that's usually not the case. Normally, somebody has mentioned it. Somebody has talked about it. Virginia Tech, for example, that kid had been going around to 2 or 3 different counselors. The counselors never talked about it. And sure enough, the kid went and did it. And then after the fact, they pieced it together. You know, it's like that's there's just too much tragedy, too much life's lost.
But these counselors do have so much to deal with. They're not really talking to kids like we think they are, like they are in the movies. So we do have a total breakdown in the system, and I don't really know how to fix that other than really going back to better parents.
Yeah, no,
People have to start raising their kids.
Yeah, ultimately, James and Jennifer Crumley were in a different world, and it's just shame.
Yeah.
And you know,
it's
just it's terrible. And they hit out, they hit out when the
and then
shit
cried,
came down.
and oh no, our lives are now ruined.
Yeah, no, it's just a terrible thing. We'll wrap it up here, but what do you think about gun control? I'd like to talk about that. Just
not controversial at all.
Yeah, no, I mean that's a whole nother topic, but real in a nutshell.
I don't think that gun control works. I think that education on gun safety works. You know, criminals are going to buy guns that don't have serial numbers on them, and that's just how it is. And so I appreciate the fact that I have the right to carry a firearm, that I have the right to have a gun in my home and protect myself. I do have my concealed carry. I do carry most of the time. You know, you might catch me on a good day when I'm not packing heat. But
I got a Nerf gun.
Yeah. But really, to me, it is something that I never thought I would need. You know, I thought, oh, who really needs to carry a gun? But then I had a stalker, and I became that person that needed to carry a gun. So, I think that, gun control is not going to control people. The problem is always the people and not the things. And I don't know how I feel though about the automatic weapon, that whole discussion. I just think it's usually complete idiots that get their hands on those things, and they are irresponsible, and it can just do so much damage. It's almost like having a pit bull that is not trained well. Pit bulls are beautiful, wonderful dogs. They do not have temperament issues, just intrinsically. But if they're raised by an asshole, they're going to do a lot of damage. So it's who has their hands on that thing that they shouldn't.
Yeah, no, I agree. And, I'm a big gun guy. I've had guns all my life. I think it comes, like you said, it comes back to education, what you do with a gun. I think it's a gun has to be held sacredly, right? Mm-hmm. I think if you have a gun in your house, like I've always had, things been locked up. Okay, it's been secured, because a situation like this is fortunately becoming a little bit too much.
But what about toy guns? I didn't let Joe have toy guns when he was younger, because we did have a gun in the house, and his relatives thought that was ridiculous and kept trying to give him a toy gun. But I just thought that was inviting problems.
Yeah, my mother the same way. My mother, when we were young kids, she never let us have play guns. She never bought us play guns. I don't think she would. Yeah, I don't think she would have yelled at me if I had. But we used to run around with sticks or whatever.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, you're gonna pick up a stick or whatever. Use your finger.
But my grandfather told me when I was like, I don't know, I was probably 5 years old before I can even. He goes, you never point a gun at something you don't intend to kill.
Right.
I mean, that's a very basic rule, right?
Right.
So that kind of covers it. But again, accidents can happen. I think easy access to something like this. Yeah. Obviously, and in this case,
whether that's video games, movies, just bad parenting, we don't glamorize guns.
Yeah, no, I agree. Well, let's shoot that one on no pun intended. Let's shoot that one on the next, or one of the next podcasts, on an upcoming podcast. Gun control.
Yeah, and so many loopholes. The people that really want guns they're gonna get them.
Yeah, no, yeah.
I don't know how to go about that. I'll research it for the next podcast. I'll have smart things.
Or one of the upcoming ones. Yeah.
So what did we really get out of today? Because you are an expert in this, in the officers, the resource officers at the school, and how to hopefully prevent situations like this. So is it really just see something, say something?
Well, I think that's that, right? And I really want the parents to know that. And we are special here in the 239, right? I want parents
We're very blessed.
Yeah, we're blessed. I want parents to know that they can have great comfort knowing that our law enforcement folks are on top of this. Not saying it could never happen here, because I would never do that. But we are so fortunate that our law enforcement is we've been way progressive on this issue for the last 20 years that I can remember. And also I know our counterparts in Lee County, Naples PD, Marco Island, anytime we have that threat, we handle it. It's everything else goes on the wayside, and we handle that. So I want parents to understand that's very important. If you see something, say something, let people know. Make sure if you have firearms in your house, access to, know who's coming over to your house. Like if your daughter has friends and things like that, do an inventory, right?
Good point. Because your kid may be educated, but their friends.
Exactly. We run into that all the time. A lot of guns get stolen with a daughter, family goes out of town, daughter has a party or friends come over. Next thing you know, we're missing 20 guns. That's scary.
Yeah.
It's scary. And I'm just using that as a scenario. It could be, your son's friends that come over. It could be anything. But again, I think we're very well advanced, or we're way out in front of it here in our county. I'm proud we live in a county like this. But again, vigilance. Always got to be vigilant.
Yeah, we are the example, and I'm very grateful for that. But we do have to stay vigilant, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But thank you for the work that you've done to keep us safe.
Yeah, we're very fortunate, and it's a passion to me. I kind of get fired up about it. So it's a topic that I really want to go into a little bit more. It's unfortunate these situations come up. The only good thing is maybe we can every time we have something like this, we learn more and we tighten down more. But yeah,
we are the example, and hopefully we'll see change come from this tragedy.
Yeah.
And no more. My goodness, no more.
No more. All right. 239 Uncensored, everything Southwest Florida. Thank you for listening. And make sure to go to our Facebook page. We're on Spotify. We're on Google. We're on Apple Podcast. Get our podcast. We talk about everything. So we have a good time. And we also are live usually on Fridays and Mondays, and every now and then here and there. So
all kinds of things.
2022 is going to be a good year. We're going to be talking about some cool stuff. And we are out.